Warning: this video contains high levels of hope and optimism. Viewers' discretion is strongly advised.
This right here is a snake plant flower. Snake plant blooming is a very rare occurrence, and so when it happens, various questions are raised. Questions like, what kind of snake plant blooms? What happens when snake plant bloom? What time to expect it? And you know what they say about flowers? Flowers lead to seed. And will I cut it off? Of course, yes I will, and you're going to know why, because I am royal and I planted the snake plants in Nigeria. So on a random Sunday morning, I decided to tour around the area where I kept my snake plant, and what I saw was indeed a bizarre situation. This was the very first day I saw my snake plant bloom. So I had to capture this on camera. I'm just coming out now to see that my snake plant of 6 years just flowered, and I've never seen this in my life before. This is the first time I'm seeing this in real life, that snake plant is flowering. Very unique situation because this doesn't happen normally, because you rarely see people talk about their snake plants flowering, because many people also believe that snake plants are boring, but I can just see that snake plants are not boring because I just found my snake plant flowering, and I think that's cool. So the day my snake plant bloomed, I did exactly what every other person who keeps plants would have done. So I went online and I researched about it, and I found out that snake plant blooming is just a very rare occurrence in Sansevieria species. It's a very normal but rare condition that occurs when the plant is stressed internally, and so it has to put up that flower to express the stress. I never expected this bloom that I saw on my snake plant, and I'm really grateful because I think this is a signal of good tidings that I'm expecting. I never expected that this flower is something that happens very rare. You never find snake plant blooming on a normal day, and I just see it happening. So I believe that it's a signal of good tidings, because flowers are of good representation and have good meaning. So to see such a rare bloom on such a day, like, it just makes me feel very happy and hopeful at the moment. Snake plants are self-sufficient and low maintenance house plants. They are very sustainable, hardy, and easy to propagate. Snake plants can be grown from the leaf of an already existing plant by a method called leaf cutting, or from the stem of an already existing plant by a method known as stem cutting. Apparently, I carried out both methods, and I came to the conclusion that the method of stem cutting does not give a reliable result as that of leaf cutting. If you so desire to grow snake plant at home, I would greatly advise that you grow snake plant from the leaf. The major reason is that the stem remains dormant in the soil for a longer time, but when compared to the leaf, the snake plant will grow rapidly, increasing your chances of having so many snake plants within a short time. You all know what they say about flowers. When there's flowers, we are expecting seeds, and even if the flower does not come out brightly colored or very special, they can be pollinated by wind, even when they are inconspicuous and dull colored. But when a snake plant blooms like this, I do not think that seeds are formed. And even if seeds were formed in mine, I wasn't really interested to find seeds, because I knew that if they were actually seeds formed by this process, they would not be viable for sexual reproduction. And also, there was just one flower here, so imagine if it was going to happen as self-pollination, you will end up having a monotonous seed that wouldn't really be viable for sexual reproduction. So there was no seed, and I still stand on my ground that leaf cutting is the best method to propagate snake plants. So when you talk about blooming in Sansevieria species, it does not really happen in just one species. Every type of Sansevieria is likely to bloom at different time of the year. My snake plant is about 6 years right now, and this is the first time it's actually blooming. It happened in July, and the weather is very rainy at the moment, and I think the stress that caused the blooming was due to the cold weather, because when it's raining out there, it's very cold, and so the stress was building up in the snake plant, and the only way the plant could express this stress was by shooting up this flower stalk. I strongly believe that the weather at any point in time influences the chances of your snake plant blooming. If you are able to replicate a cooler environment and could water your snake plants frequently, I can assure that your snake plant is likely to bloom. My snake plant did not just release a flower stalk. The flower stalk began to bloom rapidly, and by close inspection you can see that the petals began to unfold and develop as time goes by. So the flower stalk was already looking like Cystiquitous on a bad hair day, so I had to raise it up to become like Cystiquitous on a normal day. Despite all my attempts to make the flower grow vertically, it was just a failure because the flower kept bending downwards, growing horizontally to the direction it loves best. Well, there's nothing nothing I could do but just watch it and see how nature does its thing. My snake plant was comfortably sitting outdoors and there was no need to water this plant because it was very rainy and wet outdoors. If I thought my snake plant was sitting indoors, I would have probably been watering it daily so that we'll be able to maintain the flowers and enable them to develop to maturity. Some people are of the opinion that a flowering snake plant signals that the plant is about to die. I absolutely think that that is a fallacy because a flowering snake plant or a blooming snake plant is a signal of plant maturity and not just a plant dying. In fact, seeing your snake plant bloom is a signal that you are doing a great job and your plant is thriving so well. Now take a look at my plant at just 12 days of blooming. You can see that the flowers are already looking very flamboyant and it's very good. One sensory effect that I missed while my snake plant was blooming was that I was unable to sniff the snake plant closely, especially at night. I didn't necessarily want to touch the snake plant too much because I didn't want it to be losing the flowers, because if you can look closely at the ground you can already see that some of the flowers are already falling down and I didn't want that. Of course, it was a signal that something was about to happen next.
2 weeks later.
Guys, you don't want to see how that beautiful flower looks just after 2 weeks, like it was flamboyant before now. You all know what the wise people say, there is a time to born and there's a time to die, and you can never stay young forever. The snake plant flower began to wither seriously after the 14th day of blooming. This is not something that I can control because I actually wanted this plant to stay active longer than it did, but the flower hadn't come to stay too long. At this point, when the flower began to die, I started to have this feeling that my snake plant was going to die alongside the flower. I started to reason towards the fallacy that snake plant blooming is a signal that your plant is about to die. So I decided to sniff through the flowers, especially some of the ones that were about falling. I must say these falling petals smelled like death. And I panicked because I didn't want to lose the snake plant that I had kept for 6 years and counting. I decided to get rid of the flower, not necessarily because I feared that the flower could infect the parent plant. Snake plants are succulents, and succulents are very hardy plants that do store water and food reserves in their leaves, stem, and secondary growth areas. What I'll never forget to mention is that in as much as this flower stalk is dying, the snake plant itself will try its possible best to retain it. By so doing, the plant to localize its growing potentials and concentrate the nutrients it has stored on the flower stalk. At this point, the flower stalk will be the priority of the plant at the expense of the leaves. So basically, the leaf growth will be paused. I had to wait patiently because I was not in a hurry to chop off the flower stalk from the plant. As you all know, plants are able to regenerate lost parts, and so I thought that there will be a kind of revival, or there will be a kind of welcome back, or a miracle that would just restore this plant to its original state. And that was the reason why I didn't want to chop off the flower stalk quite early, because I didn't want to interrupt the process of nature. An ideal snake plant bloom is supposed to last for at least a month. That's about 30 days if you take care of it properly. My snake plant flower was deteriorating faster than I thought, and I had to do something about it. Every morning when I go close to the area where I kept the snake plant, I'll see that a lot of petals are falling off from the plant, and it really raised concern in me. There was this particular day when I came out and I saw that majority of the leaves of the snake plant were not looking healthy and the flowers were all falling off. So I decided that I was going to cut off the flower stalk the following day, and I was going to do this on the base of the plant. One more important thing to note was that throughout the period when the flower was blooming or when the flower bloom was dying, there was no incident of pest infestation. I never saw any form of pest around the plant during that period when it was blooming. For the cutting of the bloom stalk, I didn't have any specialized tool, so I was just going to use a pair of scissors that I found earlier on. There are several things to note about cutting the flower stalk, and I think I should spill the tea right now. When you cut the flower stalk, you shouldn't be expecting a new flower stalk to grow again anytime soon, and it is a good suggestion to cut the stalk when the plant is done blooming. You know that a snake plant does not bloom twice, so if at all you didn't cut off the flower, the stalk will just remain there and it will not bloom again. Rather, it will be using up the nutrients that have been stored on the leaves of the plant. Cutting the flower stalk does not hurt the plant, rather it will create room for growth of new leaves and pups. Remember, when cutting the flower stalk, you want to cut all the way down there, and that's what I was trying to achieve, because I had cut it into half and I really had to remove the other half that anchored on the snake plant that bloomed. Like I said, I didn't have any specialized tool for doing this, so I had to use a pair of scissors, and I carefully did it without hurting the the snake plant itself. So I had to get rid of these things, but I didn't want to throw them away because they were purely organic, so I had to give them back to the plant because they say you should give what belongs to Caesar back to Caesar. So the reason why I still kept the flower with the plant was because the flower was pest free and I didn't see any potential of it causing any pest infestation on the snake plant itself. So after chopping off the plant stalk, I just realized that the snake plant had grown no more and no less of how it was before. So at this point, my snake plant looks completely normal and a passerby would never tell that this plant just flowered. So you can see it's very normal for your snake plant not to flower, and that is why I say like it's okay if your snake plant does not flower anytime soon. But one thing I will assure you is that it will happen, and when it does, try not to prioritize the flower over the entire plant. At this point, I'll call it a video. Thank you viewers, thank you YouTube.